Welcome, everybody, to Silent Hill 2 Remake. February 10th, 2025. I'm Nub Zombie. We're going to be going through Silent Hill 2 on PS5, watching all the cutscenes, talking about the lore. I'll be answering questions from the live chat, and just kind of sharing everything I've learned so far, everything I think about the game so far as we go through. Kind of a precursor to the in-depth story playthroughs, so we'll just call this a story playthrough. Let's do New Game Plus. Let's do hard combat, hard puzzle. Let's go.
Could you really be in this town?
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. My wife's name. It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago. So then why am I looking for her? Our special place. What could she mean? This whole town was our special place. Could Mary really be here? Is she really alive? Waiting for me?
So it should be obvious if you're already here watching, but in case this is the first video of mine or stream of mine you've ever seen, spoiler warning. We're going to be discussing all of the spoilers, all of the in-depth stuff as we go. So if you still have yet to experience this game for yourself, this is your last chance to turn back. And mostly because I wanted to comment on your comment there in chat, Default. Well, technically he took her back. Yeah. She's there. There she is. You can see, whoops, a little bit of the blanket right there, even without a cam hack. Eventually, we're going to do a cam hack playthrough once I get the software and everything set up to do that, so that we can take the camera inside the car and look at all these very specific Easter eggs and details in more clarity. But yeah, in the original Silent Hill 2, it was intended for Mary's body to be in the car, in the back seat. It is an intentional, confirmed by the developers, intentional part of the story. For the remake, Bloober actually rendered. There is a blanket there in the back seat in the shape of her body. Her body itself is not rendered under the blanket, but again, it's a much stronger implication compared to the original, where there was nothing rendered in the car. We just had to go off of the developer's commentary and intent for what was there. Now there is something actually visually there. And it is, I do appreciate that they let you sort of see that if you're looking for it. If you know what to look for, you can see it there even without a cam hack. We got our Silent Hill town map. Our very ever so slightly rearranged version of the town. The map and everything is redone. The town is slightly different from the way it appeared in the original. And we actually will see an Easter egg of the original town map a little bit later once we get to the apartments. One thing I've noticed, and it seems to be true on New Game, and I think they switch around even more of these posters on New Game Plus. There's a lot of posters with dogs on them. I'm guessing alluding to the dog ending. Lots of posters with dogs on them as you explore around. And again, I think they even switch out some posters so that there's even more dog posters on New Game Plus, but I'll need to do more playthroughs, kind of compare New Game and New Game Plus, some of these little details that might potentially change. What ending am I going for today? I mean, I'm definitely not going to finish this playthrough today. But eventually, the goal is to get several endings. I'm basically just working on 100% now. So we'll be trying to do some trophies and achievements, both on the PS5 and PC versions of this. Eventually, I'll 100% both versions and do everything. But yeah, ideally we're going to go for multiple endings. Several details here in the bathroom, kept over from the original. We've got our depiction of Lilith, the demon Lilith, taken from the Dictionary of Demons, written by Fred Gettings, 1988. Was used in the bathroom, exact same stall, exact same wall as the original game. Love that they kept a lot of these details, the biblical writing, some little pieces here and there. There's actually one of the mysterious photos that you can pick up in this game. There's an entire hidden message sort of side quest thing with finding all of these mysterious photos and decoding them to spell out a message. One of those photos is of this phrase, although it's mirrored, so it's technically, I guess, a photo of this mirror showing that in the background. Thy hands fish. It says the hands, but it's like a variation of a biblical phrase. Thy hands fashioned and made me, and then thou turn around and destroy me. Which I believe is from the book of Job. I am decaying like a garment that is moth-eaten. Also from Job. It's very, very dark. I don't even know if this is visible. You can get some light in here very briefly by opening this. And yeah, there you can see the Heaven's Night posters with Maria already there. Again, details that were in the original Silent Hill 2 that they recreated for the remake pretty faithfully, as far as like where everything is and just how it's presented. James still just, you can tell you get almost a little bit of a hint of his mindset as he pulled up and parked. Didn't even bother like parking normally. And of course we get James, that opening scene, looking in the mirror, his hands shaking, which they bring that up. It's one thing that I do really like about the remake is because there is more, just better technology for more detailed motion capture and performance capture. There's a lot of really subtle details, like the way James grabs and rubs his hands during that little scene in the bathroom. We see that behavior from James throughout the game in several points. So it kind of gives him these little visual cues to his mental state that we didn't necessarily have in the performance capture of the original, just because it was a much more rudimentary motion capture, and a lot of it still had to be hand animated. Count Wolf, thank you so much for the 1,000 bits. It honestly kind of bugged me how dark all the interiors were early on before you had a flashlight. Yeah. I mean, I understand. It's from the side of me that just wants to explore and look at all the details. It's a bit frustrating, but at the same time, just for the sake of immersion, like, I get it. You want there to be a distinct difference when you find your flashlight. You don't want to find your flashlight and be like, oh, this is useless. It doesn't do anything. And you don't want the darkness to be so inconsequential that you feel like the flashlight is pointless either. It's funny. This was speculated by fans and even by James's original actor, Guy Seehey, to be Eddie's van in the original game. And I feel like Bloober really ran with that. And they added, like, you can see there's junk food wrappers and like fast food cups and bags and stuff in there. Little details to kind of imply even more so that it's supposed to be Eddie's van. even though we see it as like being old, the tires are flat, it looks like it's been here for, 30 years untouched, just like every other, or I guess 20 years if we're going off of the Easter eggs and stuff later. But yeah, it feels like it's been sitting here like all the other cars, everything else. It doesn't look like something that Eddie would have theoretically pulled up in, within like maybe an hour or two before James getting here. Pete's Bolorama billboard still up there. Little more worn compared to the original game, the way that it's shown, but again, this game Bloober kind of has their own little twist with it through their loop theory implication. Christophonics, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs going out to the community. Thank you. That is awesome. Beluga Bay, Dimps, Kreba, Lana Bub, and Razkurt. Enjoy the subs, courtesy of Christophonics. Thank you so much. Am I streaming on YouTube as well as you're growing your channel on there? I'm not streaming on YouTube currently. For right now, I'm kind of keeping streaming here on Twitch, and YouTube is more just for my edited videos and stuff. Obviously, this will still be archived on YouTube as well, but I might start streaming on YouTube as well. But for now, it's still separated. But yeah, there's a little extra wear and tear to a lot of things, the way they're presented in this game, because of the loop theory aspect. Bloober Team wanted to kind of include this almost tongue-in-cheek idea that because there's roughly 20 years between the original game and the remake, that these characters, this story, that all of this has sort of been stuck here, unable to go on since the original game for those last 20 years. And again, I agree the way you said that, Zucchina. Loop theory's fun, but it doesn't really work when you consider Laura. There's a lot of things that don't really work with loop theory in mind, especially things that were established by the original game, by the original developers. The loop theory is not a new thing. It wasn't invented by Bloober. It wasn't created for the remake. It was an old fan theory. It's almost as old as the Silent Hill 2 original game is. There's forum posts and discussion talking about those similar kind of theories going all the way back to like 2002, 2003. So it feels like Bloober really did their research on the history of the game, not just what is considered canon and not just what is considered, official from the developer's standpoint, but also fan theories. They looked into a lot of fan theories and things that were popular through the fan base. And kind of included them in the remake. And the loop theory is one of those things. It's a fun idea. And for people who like it, you can like it. For people who don't like it, you don't have to like it. It's not forced. It's not like confirmed canon. Even the developers, like people asked director Mateos from Bloober Team about, if it's canon or not on Twitter. And they don't give any definitive answers, which is how it should be. That's one of those things that is totally fine. Just if you get it, if you recognize what it is, that's cool. If you don't, it doesn't take away from the story if you don't accept the theory. So it's kind of fine. It's kind of fine either way. Exactly. I take it as a nod to the community and just a fun thing for fans to kind of piece together. We've got a note here. Grave truths lost to the mind shall flow white into a void chalice, so the rite of red shall commence. So they've added several notes to New Game Plus. This is a New Game Plus specific note where they're giving you clues how to get the new endings, how to get all of your New Game Plus endings. So this is telling you need the white chrism, you need the obsidian goblet, you need the crimson tome. So flow white, that's your white chrism. Void chalice, that's your obsidian goblet. Rite of red, that's your crimson ceremony. So you've got a bunch of these kind of notes. We'll find some more once we get into town and go into Andy's books that give you these clues that help you help new players figure out how to get these endings. Yes, that note's only in New Game Plus. Because with the original game, like, that was from an era where you just had to figure stuff out. Like, video games didn't really give you a lot of hints. Silent Hill games especially did not really give you hints to, like, how to get different endings. And, you know, a lot of that you really just had to figure out yourself. Or spend money on, you know, guides and things like that back in the day. And yeah, good point, Rachel. Even if you got a guide, a lot of the strategy guides back then were kind of hit and miss. They weren't always 100% accurate. Yeah, call-in lines. There used to be the pay per minute video game tip lines. But now we've got notes just to kind of give you hints and clues to figure out what you're doing.
It's like someone's groping around my skull.
Someone's groping around my skull. Trees look great. This whole wood section looks good. And again, it's like if you played Blair Witch, if you played Bloober Team's Blair Witch game, you'll know, like, they can do really nice looking nature. They can do the woods pathway, like this whole visual aesthetic very well, and it shows here. I'm glad that they utilized that, because even though I'm not a fan of Bloober Team's games, I can see so much in Silent Hill 2 Remake where they learned from every single game that they've made. Even if I don't like those previous games, they took every single thing that they've learned over the course of making those games and improved on it specifically for this game. Like, I'm not just a Bloober hater for the sake of hating them. I dislike their previous games. I like this game. I'm not going to just hate them for the sake of hating them. Like, I have criticisms about their previous games, but this one shows that, like, they're still improving. They're still learning from every game that they make and improving on what they know how to do. Like honing in on the things that they do well and brushing up on the things they didn't do so well. Overall, it's impressive.
excuse me.
I'm sorry. I was just...
Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
Yeah, I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road. You can't miss it.
Thanks.
But... I think you should stay away. This town, there's something wrong with it. And it's not just the fog, either.
Is it dangerous?
Maybe. It's kind of hard to explain, but...
I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just... I guess I don't really care if it's dangerous or not. I'm going either way.
But why?
I'm looking for... someone. Someone very important to me.
Me too. I'm looking for my mama. I mean, my mother. It's been so long since I've seen her. I thought my father and brother were here, but I can't find them either. I'm sorry, it's not your problem.
No, I hope you find them.
Yeah, you too.
We get our first scene with Angela in the graveyard. Iconic scene. Agent 501 said at first I wasn't sure, but in the end I really like the new Angela. I like all of the new performances. It's varying to the degree that I like them. And some scenes definitely stand out more than others. But overall, like, nothing in the remake to me came off as like a bad performance. They all do a good job. I miss the weird line delivery sometimes, though. I agree. There are definitely lines that are delivered in such a way now where they feel a little bit too normal, but it's hard to know. It's hard to separate that out because those original performances are just so burned into my brain at this point that sort of stilted, dreamlike Lynchian performance, which was about 80% intentional, 20% unintentional when it came to the direction of the original game. Now, everything is very deliberate. Like, there's nothing in the remake that is not intentional. They had the means and the budget and the performances, the actors, the direction and everything to get exactly what they wanted. And there's certain scenes where that shows and it comes off really good, especially the cinematography. I think a lot of people also don't give enough credit to everything as a whole, because you have the voice performances, but then you also have the actual performance capture and how well that syncopates with the voice performances and how well the camera, like the shots and the camera dynamic, needs to also sort of drive the performances. And it's something that sometimes in the remake feels a little bit off. Not bad enough to where it ever like takes me out of the game or takes me out of the scene or the vibe that they're going for. But there's definitely times where I'm like, the shot's a little bit flat. Like the scene's a little bit flat. The voice performance is good, but it could have been shot a little bit more dynamically. You could have shown a little bit more in the performances. And speaking of the performances, it's one thing that we know for sure was toned down. And I think overall for the better. But when you look at early versions of this game, when you look at the first trailers, and when you look at the 1.0 version that's on the disc, like, there's a lot of times where the performances got toned down. There was more emotion on James's face, and then they like scaled it back for the final version. Or there was a little bit more dynamic camera angles, and they got scaled back to be a little bit more flat.
Did you?
It's interesting.
Did you want anything else?
No, it's just this fog. Does it seem unsettling to you?
I guess. It's just through the gate and down the path. You'll get there in no time. Good luck finding the one you're looking for.
Yeah, I should probably get going.
Speaking of performance capture, look at Angela's body language here. The way that she crosses her arms and the way that she grabs her arm. James mimics this behavior later. We don't see him do this like during the intro before he meets Angela. Later on, when we meet Maria, James mimics this posture. There's a lot of little specific details with the performances. It, like, more than the voice performances, a lot of people got so hung up on the voice performances, if they're good or bad or how they compare to the original. The motion capture, the physical performances, to me, stand out so much more. They're so good. There's so much care and detail put into all of the little character movements, all of these little subtle, like, micro face twitches and muscle movements. It's really good. Whether or not, you know, you feel one way or the other about the voice performances, the actual motion capture, performance capture is insanely detailed. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like people maybe don't pick up on or don't notice enough to appreciate. But I'll try and point a lot of that out as we go as well. Here we go. Crimson Ceremony. They rearrange a lot of the New Game Plus items so that you don't find them in the same places as the original game. So here we actually get the Crimson Ceremony book first, as opposed to in the original game you get the White Chrism first in the apartments. There we go. Crimson Ceremony, a book about some ancient beliefs. Author unknown. Is this Walter Sullivan's grave? No. We specifically find Walter's grave later on. Although there is some interesting recurring imagery here. That image, that emblem there on the gravestone of the eye, we will see that painted on the walls in some of the environments later. Yami, thank you so much for the 37 months. It's been like an hour. Staying hydrated, keeping your vocal cords good. Blink twice if Bloober's in the room with you. Okay. Bloober's not here. Am staying hydrated. Dropping frames? Yep, we are dropping frames. I was dropping frames at the start. I don't know if my internet's just kind of being spotty today. It looks like it leveled out though. So far it seems to just kind of happen for a moment and then it stabilizes, so we'll try and keep going. If it gets too bad, then I don't know. We'll postpone things. Got the church here. It kind of really changed this building up compared to how it looked in the original. And a little Easter egg there. All have sinned. Trying to remember the full quote. It's a little bit hard to see without camera manipulation. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. Had to pull up my notes. There is a lot of, well, there's a few very particular Bible quotes in the original Silent Hill 2. Bloober Team added like 10 times as many. So you'll find some similar writing. Sometimes it's kind of coded. Little bits of Bible phrases that are coded in the wall. The room with the... You get locked into a room with a safe. And it's got stuff written all over the walls. And you have to figure out the combination. There's actually a coded message using a cipher written on those walls that is little bits and pieces of some Bible quotes. The license plates on almost every car. Let's see, can I backtrack? Nope. We're locked in. Locked in at this point. But yeah. I should have pointed out on Eddie's van, the license plate is a reference to a Bible verse, Ephesians, I forget which one. Nub has notes written all over his arms with permanent marker. I don't have enough skin for all the notes on Silent Hill I've got. Again, I love just the atmosphere. Walking into the town, get this music track kind of starting a little bit later than it does in the original. Like after Angela. Creepy scarecrow out there. Sounds of movement. Lots of things like that. Little sound effects and things that tend to be a lot more subtle, just kind of creepy. Buzzing sounds. Now this is PS5, Joestar. There we go. We got the chainsaw. Too bad I don't have a gun yet, because you can aim the gun to like quickly put away the chainsaw so that you don't have to sit here and listen to it. There we go. Or wait for James to put it away by himself. So I mentioned eventually I'm going to get the software and everything set up so that we can do a cam hack playthrough of this to show off some specific Easter eggs. This is one of them. One of the best ones. So this is the infamous Silent Hill Ranch sign. This is more or less how it looks in the original, recreated for the remake. And as a lot of people know, there was the HD collection in 2012 that had Silent Hill 2 and 3 included, and that version of Silent Hill, those versions of Silent Hill 2 and 3 are very bad. They are the worst versions of Silent Hill 2 and 3 you can play. They're playable, but they're bad. And one of the things that they changed with Silent Hill 2 in HD collection was, for some reason, this sign, the Silent Hill Ranch sign, was changed to be written in Comic Sans, and a lot of people made fun of it. Bloober Team has the Comic Sans sign from HD collection sitting on a pile of trash inside that barn. You're never able to go in there. You have to have a cam hack so that you can break the camera and take it all the way over into that barn. But they have a pile of trash with the Comic Sans Silent Hill Ranch sign sitting on top. So even Bloober took shots at like the HD collection. And again, that just gives me even more evidence that Bloober Team put a lot of things in this specifically for fans. It's not necessarily something like the same deal with Loop Theory and a lot of the other things they sort of hint at in this game. It's for fan service. It's almost like inside jokes among the fandom that Bloober is trying to show, like, look, they're not just being tasked with remaking this game, they are fans themselves. And they included a lot of very specific things that really only like super nerd, diehard fan types are going to notice or care about. Deverin, thank you so much for the 39 months. Long time no see. After playing this, would you rather see Bloober make more remakes or a new Silent Hill game? I am always going to lean towards new games rather than remakes or rehashes. I am still of the mind, even though I like this remake, I feel like I would trade this remake in just to make the original game easily available. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a good game. I enjoyed this remake thoroughly. But I would absolutely trade in the existence of this if you could just go on PS5 and get the original Silent Hill 2. If you could just download it as a PS2 classic. If you could just have the original games on modern consoles. I would much rather have that than remakes or rehashes or reboots or anything like that. And then let teams like Bloober Team focus on new entries. Because that's the only thing wrong with the original games. They're not available on modern hardware. They're not accessible to most people. I like a lot of these little additions to the environments too. Things that weren't there really before. Like, you still picked up the chainsaw, and you still had like a pile of logs to kind of indicate logging to some degree in the original, but now they added like this whole set of structures and everything here. Very much gives me a Twin Peaks logging city lumber mill vibe. And of course, Twin Peaks, heavily influential. David Lynch, rest in peace, heavily influential to the series overall. So, seeing Bloober add things that still are in line with those original influences and aesthetics is something that I can really enjoy, really appreciate. Gonna play devil's advocate and say that if Silent Hill 1 doesn't get a non-tank control scheme, a lot of younger or more casual gamers still wouldn't touch it, even if it got a straight port to Steam. Maybe. Counter argument, there are an absolute fuck ton of indie horror games that are quite popular that thrive entirely because they are PS1 aesthetic and tank control. Because the retro vintage style has come back into somewhat niche popularity again. So I don't think it's as big of a detriment as people think it is. Yeah, that gum you like is back in style. Exactly. Woody gets it. Went to town to get the window fixed. Spare keys in the drawer. In your drawer. Hey Nub, what's your favorite David Lynch project? Probably Twin Peaks. In general, Twin Peaks.
Hello?
If I were to narrow down
Anyone in here?
anything particular from Twin Peaks, probably Twin Peaks The Return, like the last season. Oh, I love Lost Highway. Love Lost Highway. I love Blue Velvet. Eraserhead. Those are all very, very high up there. But like Twin Peaks? Twin Peaks is also just sort of such a good spread of David Lynch. Like Lost Highway, it's amazing. You get a very, very specific David Lynch vibe from Lost Highway. You get a very specific David Lynch vibe for Eraserhead. Twin Peaks is like, you get everything. It's such a weird... Because you'll just be sitting there watching it and you'll get engrossed in the more normal moments where you just kind of have like characters talking and things happening that are sort of normal. And then immediately the next scene will be like, oh, right, I'm watching a David Lynch production. And it's like the weirdest fucking most out there scene that you can imagine. And then the scene after that, it'll go right back to being somewhat like normal or grounded again. I love Twin Peaks for that. I love Twin Peaks for that. There's just such a roller coaster of visual styles and feeling that you get from like each scene, each part of it. Okay, so this is one of the things I'm still learning. I'm still getting used to with this game. I know for one of the New Game Plus endings, there's a key that you have to get out of a car that requires the chainsaw to break it. Like, it's before you get to the wooden plank. And I don't know for sure what car that is. Is it one of these? Is it something that I've already passed? Am I already missing stuff? Or is it a little further in? It's further in? Okay. Thank you, Lambda. Yeah, Key of Sorrow. I don't remember which car that's in. Right when you get to the road. Okay, default. Thank you. How do you like your coffee? I'm allergic. So I actually don't drink coffee. I developed a coffee allergy going into my mid-20s. I drank coffee as a teenager and as an early 20-something. And eventually started having issues. Had a day where I drank coffee, my face swole up, my throat swole up. And I was like, man, that was weird. And I didn't immediately think it was just coffee. So some time went by, and eventually I tried drinking coffee again. Same thing happened. And eventually I narrowed it down. No, it's not a caffeine, because caffeine allergies are more common. I can still drink sodas. I can still drink tea. I don't have a reaction to caffeine, but coffee itself, any kind of coffee grounds or coffee beans, it does not play nice. Our first glimpse of the past. We get some unique audio here too. The longer you stay here. You can hear some growling. And then very faintly, you can hear the original radio. The original radio static. Sound effect from Silent Hill 2. So this is essentially a recreation of where you encounter the first lying figure. You pick up the wooden plank and you first get the radio in the OG Silent Hill 2, which is why you get the glimpse of the past moment here. But then you have this. Let me mute my mic. I'll turn up the game audio. But there you go. Again, I've got headphones on. It's going to vary, maybe, depending on your setup, how well you can hear all that. But on top of just the you know, glimpse of the past, the visual and everything, I like that there are some more subtle details mixed in there as well, like hearing that original radio. Love that kind of stuff. My Maniac 8, thank you so much for gifting a sub to Cola Man X. Thank you, thank you. Was that the sound of the radio? Yeah. So, specifically, original Silent Hill 2. There is the cutscene where you encounter the first lying figure, you kill it, and then as James starts to walk out of that little tunnel area, you start hearing the radio. And he takes it out and he's like, huh? Is this thing broken? And then you start hearing Mary's voice. So that sound effect, right before James says, huh? Is this thing broken? In the original, that very first sound of the radio, like springing to life, starting to make sound, is very, very faintly playing in the background right here. Yeah, this will be on YouTube. Fog and stuff here looks much better compared to the PC version, at least on my PC setup. There's a lot of these areas where, like, looking through a see-through texture, like the chain link fence, and then having another translucent texture behind it, like the fog. Some of those areas on PC kind of struggled and didn't look so great. Looks a lot better here. Was surprised how much headphones make a difference in terms of hearing the more subtle stuff. Headphones, I highly, highly recommend this game with headphones. Like, if you have the opportunity. If you have the means to play this wearing headphones, please do. The sound design is really, really good. And there, like I said, there are a lot of really good little subtle things in the audio that I feel are very easy to miss. The key is meant to be in that car. That is the one where it's supposed to be. I started New Game Plus. Only if you have in water. Haven't gotten the ending to get that key. Okay. So that'll be a future playthrough. That's fine. That's right. So these are Rachel's save files. I wasn't sure what all endings Rachel had already gotten. Yeah, I'm like, it's got to be New Game Plus. I've already got the chainsaw. Okay, but that makes sense. Specifically, it needs to be in water. Well, maybe we'll wind up getting that on this playthrough. On top of some of the other New Game Plus endings. Because we should theoretically still be able to do Dog, UFO, Rebirth, and then one of the normal ones. All on this playthrough. Just by reloading a save at the very end. Got the Roadrunner. Again, all these little recreated signs and stuff. These, the detail that went into the recreation of these. My first playthrough, I legitimately thought a lot of this was thought a lot of this was just the original textures, just ripped and stuck into this. But Bloober, like, painstakingly recreated them to be practically identical to the original textures, just higher resolution. This was a solid remake. It really, really was. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of remakes in general. I'm always more of a fan of accessibility. You know, make classic games available. Don't just make them again. But in terms of remakes, as far as remakes go, like, this is probably my second favorite. The only thing I'd put above this in terms of like remakes is Final Fantasy VII. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother thing. Map of the east side of South Vale. Again, very, very close to the original Silent Hill 2 map. But if you've got a keen eye, if you're very, very familiar with the layout of the OG Silent Hill 2 and the appearance of the map, you can see there's some slight changes. But I did like the way they laid the town out. Made exploration feel a little bit more natural. A few more things to sort of guide you from point to point without just really obviously like hand-holding from area to area. Little things like this. Little references like this. Like, people wouldn't even realize. Like, how many people played this and realized that this is a reference? In the original game, you find a first aid kit here. And for the remake, they put an empty first aid box that you typically find syringes and stuff in later on. Those are the little details that I can really appreciate. Stuff that I'm like, 90% of fans aren't even going to know what the fuck this is. Even people who've played this game, like, if I didn't speedrun and obsess over these games the way I did, I'm like, most people aren't going to remember every little item placement, you know? And the fact that they put a reference there just to the location of an item in the original. Like, that shows so much attention to detail. Oh yeah, and all these newspapers, there's a bunch of really cool stuff with the newspapers. So not only do we have our Silent Hill news here, and it gives a little bit of backstory to some of the things that are going on. Woodside Apartments, severely flooded. So it's like, oh, there was a flood in Woodside. And it gives you a little bit of an explanation as to like why those apartments look the way that they do. It's also a bit of a parallel to like the Lakeview Hotel. Main news. And it's very, very difficult to see a lot of these little textures and things in game. You can only see them with so much detail, but people have already gone through and ripped all of these textures and assets and things so that you can view them up close in high definition. And on all of the news, well, like most of the newspapers, I don't think it's all of them, but on almost every newspaper, flyer, anything where it has text, a lot of times these little bits of text that you can't quite read are parts of the letter. They are parts of Mary's letter. There's little words and bits of phrases taken from Mary's letter and used as the filler text on a lot of these little newspapers. And again, you've got to like rip the assets and look at them super close. Eventually I'll do a full cam hack playthrough to show all this stuff in more detail, but there will be newspapers where like you can read the title of the paper, you can read the headline, but if you zoom in on like the really tiny little text, it'll say like wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness as like a little piece of filler text. It's little bits and pieces of Mary's letter are on like almost every newspaper and flyer. Crazy detail. Like literally stuff that you would not see if you don't just rip assets and stuff. So the fact that Bloober knew that fans were going to be delving that deeply into everything, like ripping assets, looking at everything in ways that were not intended, and still included stuff, details, and Easter eggs in those types of scenarios, like that's going above and beyond. They didn't have to do that, but they did. Little references here. The logo on the shopping carts. That is the 8 Mart logo. 8 Mart is the convenience store in Silent Hill 1. So right at the start of the game, Harry wakes up from the crash in the middle of the street, and the first thing on your left is the 8 Mart in Silent Hill 1. So now we have these little shopping carts reflecting that. Miss Cassandra. And her name was Cassandra. A customer came in today, ordered a mixed bouquet, red and white. I tried to explain it's bad luck, but he couldn't decide on just one. He seemed a bit off, looked at me like I wasn't even there, then he just left. Said he'd be back to pick him up later. I just wanted to let you know, since I might be gone by then. Was this James? Okay, so this is something that I've noticed a lot of people talking about and discussing on like forums and subreddit and stuff. So this is similar to the way things were presented in the original as well. This is James. Like, it is referring to something that James has done. But the details, like the name Cassandra, the fact that it's something happening here in town, like that might not necessarily be true, because these notes, just like pretty much anything else in the game, are being created based on things in James's mind. Like, these are things that are not here naturally. They're being manifested for James to find. So they relate to him. It's a way for the town to sort of speak through James's subconscious, or a way for James to confront himself, however you want to look at it. I don't necessarily buy into the whole the town is sentient thing. I think it's more just reflecting what's in your characters' minds. So it's a way for James to confront his memories. He has these subconscious memories of doing these things. Maybe not while he was in Silent Hill. Maybe this was a bouquet that he got for Mary once she was in the hospital. Something to make her feel better, you know. But the idea of having this bouquet, this red and white, that it's bad luck, you know, that the guy seems off. These are little bits and pieces of a memory of an event, something that happened in James's life that he's partially blocking out. And this is the way the town takes that information from his subconscious and portrays it in a way that is not just spelling out exactly what James did. It's not exactly his memory, but there are enough similarities that it's supposed to be gradually waking James up to the truth, gradually breaking him out of that delusion. So that's the way I view these notes. They're not people who just were doing the exact same things as James, and it's not necessarily a note that was written in reality about something James did while he was here. But they are things. Oh, you can see the bug. You can see the creeper run across there very briefly. But they are things related to James. They are memories that James is subconsciously projecting into his environment.
What is this?
Smash. Like a dream, it can be informed by your day-to-day, but changed in unexpected ways. Yeah, and I mean, things being dreamlike or nightmare-esque or however you want to view it, that sort of surrealism is definitely a big driving point of how they like to convey information. It's more interesting than just spelling things out directly. That's a big part of what I think has kept this game so alive and active in terms of fan discussion, because you kind of can look at everything through that lens. Like, we know that James's subconscious is shaping how he perceives this reality around him. So it's fun. It's interesting to see, well, how much of the town is as it seems, how much of it is something that has been changed specifically for James to see it a different way. How much of it is for, you can go outside of the idea of like story and lore and thought, look at it from a game development standpoint. How much of it is there specifically to be a clue to the player as to what's going on? How much of it is made a little bit more obvious, a little bit more easy to notice, right? You know, you've got your letter written by Mary that gradually disappears over the course of the game to show that it's not real. And there's a location that you can find in the town that is just called Magic Envelopes. So it's like, is that something where James subconsciously knows that letter is not real, and his mind is just projecting that idea, that concept, into this store, into this location, this sign? Or is it just a way for the developers to tell the player, like, hey, draw a connection here. Here's a little hint. Pay attention to that letter. Check that envelope in your inventory every once in a while. of that stuff. You know, it's funny how we associate certain things in our minds. And a long time ago, about 17 years ago, 18 years ago, for Halloween, I made a Pyramid Head costume. Well, I used it for Halloween and wore it to a couple of anime conventions as well. And when we were making the Pyramid Head costume, we made this mixture of stuff to smear on the helmet to basically look like this, to sort of look like blood, rust, grime, nastiness, and to give some texture to the overall helmet. And the mixture that we used in order to make it this color, we used cinnamon to get it kind of gritty and kind of this reddish brown color. And it smelled delicious. It smelled like fresh baked cinnamon bread every time I wore that Pyramid Head costume. So now I see this nasty, you all see this nasty, gross sludge on the ground. And I'm like, cinnamon. Because that's just what my brain is associated with. This vibe right here, though, just walking around the town with this fog, no background music, just the ambient sound effects. These are the moments where I'm like, you nailed it. You didn't go too crazy with it. It's not underwhelming. It's not overwhelming. It's that perfect blend of just, here you go. It's creepy. It's quiet. Go explore. These are the times where, like, I forget about what I'm doing. I forget that I'm streaming. I forget that, you know, I'm trying to have, like, a critical, perceptive eye on everything. And I start just enjoying walking around the town. That's a difficult thing to get right and nail, I think. And Bloober managed to do it.
Hey, wait.
Here we go, another little glimpse of the past here. So this would have been the path leading to that tunnel in the original. This would have been where you go sort of branch off towards the first lying figure, the wooden plank, the radio. Now it's blocked off. Area closed off due to an accident. Trespassing might lead to injury or death. Again, little references to the original. So, your first time walking into the town in the OG, You'd get up to this point, you go down this path, you get to the tunnel, you encounter the lying figure, get your wooden plank, you get your radio, and then you leave. You go pick up the key, you head to the apartments. When you revisit and you're wandering around the town at night after leaving Brookhaven, you can run back to this area and it's all blocked off by police tape, as though like something happened, an accident happened. So now we have the area closed off due to an accident sign, giving us a reason why this is blocked off. So again, little, if you wanna indulge loop theory, I think it's little nods and things to events in the original, but still, if you want to indulge in your loop theory ideas, you could definitely interpret that as like, okay, the events of the first game happened, but now that area is all blocked off. And that gives a reason for things to be in new places, sort of shuffled around differently.
What happened to this town?
But again, I sort of just, either way you want to interpret it, it's a nice detail. It's a nice bit of detail that not everyone's going to catch, but the fact that there is a nice variety of things like that, things that are a little bit easier to pick up on, some references are a little more obvious and some require a lot more digging, I think that's good. It's not locked off to strictly the most diehard of fans. Like, there's a lot of stuff that... Oh. A lot of stuff that even just sort of casual fans will pick up on. Am I losing it, or did I hear a whisper? Maybe. I didn't hear it, but I may have been talking or focusing on something else. I'm still going through and picking up on sounds. There are very specific recurring sound effects that I'll point out more and more as we go. Specifically, you hear Mary breathing, a very short, gasping breath. It's not like overdone. It's super quick. It's usually super quiet. But there's a few key moments throughout the game where you'll hear a sudden gasp. That is Mary, James just slightly recalling what he did to Mary, because you wind up hearing it in the VHS tape. You wind up learning that that gasp is from Mary's death. But you hear it. You hear it multiple times throughout the game. It's funny how he takes the chainsaw out before you get close.
Hello?
Hello? Dareda. Some more of that cinnamon flavored sludge. Smash. Okay. I think this might be the blanket. Let me double check my notes. But I think this might be the same pattern that's on the blanket covering Mary in the backseat of James's car. Because I know there's a few places where they use the same cloth pattern, and I think this is one of them. No. Okay. It is not. It's similar, but we're looking for blue forget-me-nots. Blue forget-me-nots. It's a similar looking pattern, but it's blue forget-me-nots. And I know it shows up at some other times later in the game. Hey Nub, I noticed the Japanese dub playthrough didn't remain viewable on Twitch. Does that mean that there's potentially been many playthroughs I've missed since you first played the remake? No. I've just been... Twitch doesn't automatically publish videos on, like, VODs on Twitch anymore. They used to just automatically publish as soon as I end the stream. Now I have to, like, manually go in. And because I've been editing my own content and learning to edit for YouTube, I don't use my recordings, my VODs off of Twitch. I just do a local recording so that it's easier to have the file ready to just immediately edit and everything as soon as the stream ends. So you haven't missed anything. Everything that I've done, all the playthroughs and everything, they've gone up on YouTube. They're just not automatically archived here on Twitch. Do you believe it's a Twitch profile channel setting you could change, but if it works for you? I mean, do people still watch VODs? Do people watch VODs on Twitch? If people prefer that, then I'll definitely set it up that way. I feel like the majority of people, when you're watching recordings or not live, more people preferred YouTube, but if people would watch it, then yeah, I'll go back to publishing them on Twitch too. So let's immediately turn the radio off. That should get us an achievement right there. Just playing the game with no radio.
Stay back. Is this what I saw in the fog? Whatever it is, it's not human.
Whatever it is, I don't know if it's just me. Overall, I really like Luke Roberts' performance. Maybe it's just because I guess I've got an ear for accents. And let me know if you are similar, if you also hear it. But when an actor does not have, they're not naturally, like Luke Roberts does not have an American accent. He's British Canadian, I believe. So his natural voice, he has a bit more of an accent. So he's putting on a more, I guess, American accent for James. There's certain lines where it kind of, I don't know, I can hear it. I can hear the fake accent on top of his natural accent more than others. It's not like distracting, and overall his performances are really, really good where you can't even tell. Again, maybe I've just got an ear for it that it doesn't even bother most people. Clock, 10 past 9. We see the recurring theme of clocks stuck on 10 past 9, which is interesting because in the original, it was just the clock puzzle. That was a thing for the clock puzzle in the apartments, and not really significant outside of that. And it feels like they tried to give more meaning to that time, since they make it a recurring thing. More or less of a deal than OG Angela's Australian accent. It's obvious. It's definitely never as it's never as obvious as it is with Donna Burke in the original. And again, it just like with that, it doesn't bother me. Why did you kill me? Jam. Better take it with me anyway. But we still get the radio dialogue. Just the same as the OG. Get Mary's voice saying, "Why did you kill me?" It's a little more obscured, actually, in the remake compared to the OG. The OG, maybe just because I've heard it a million times, but I feel like I can really pick out what she's saying. And in this, it feels like it cuts off a bit more. It's a little bit less clear. Another glimpse of the past here. This is the same exact texture on the floor, that blood stain, ripped directly from the OG. Normally you would find one of the James corpses here with the apartment key. This would be how you get into Woodside in the original, but now it's showing those differences, the way everything has changed. And you still find that body sort of nearby. Is that dialogue noticeable in the Japanese VA? It is. It is. there is still that cutoff point where, like, you don't hear the full phrase, like, you don't hear it super clearly. But yeah, in the Japanese dialogue, you still have Mary's voice saying, "Why did you kill me?"
What is that?
Here we have our James corpse. And again, it's so interesting to me that so many new fans who were not familiar with the original played the remake and saw things like this and came to the conclusion of like loop theory. Because again, that's like nostalgic to me. 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, 24 years ago at this point, 23-ish, fans playing the original, finding the corpses that resemble James and trying to figure out what they could mean, kind of coming to that same conclusion until developers and commentary interviews kind of gave us more insight into like the intentions of these sorts of things. The idea that James is repressing all of these memories and feelings, what he's done to Mary, but also his own yearning for death, his own suicidal nature after killing Mary, which is being reflected through these corpses. Just like with the notes, the way I was explaining earlier, how James, it's something that is meant to start spurring James's mind into coming to terms with reality, breaking out of his delusion. But the fact that James doesn't acknowledge, he doesn't comment that these notes are related to things in his past. He doesn't comment that these bodies resemble him. And, you know, it's meant to show that, yes, the town is delving into his mind, taking these ideas. James is suicidal, projecting it into these corpses. But it's interesting to me that, you know, back in the day, before fans knew all that, loop theory was a common interpretation. And then now with the remake, new fans coming to the same conclusions. Heartwarming. If you're reading this, leave. This place is not what it seems. Sometimes you just have to look behind. Run away. Similar notes to what are found in the original. They kind of combined like 3 different notes into one, in a truncated version there. Who thinks this music is scary? Do you mean the music during the save? They did a good job with the save points. The save points definitely are like unsettling. Normally a save point is kind of like supposed to be a comforting thing, right? Like, okay, this is my moment to take a break and save my progress, and there's almost like a safety feeling to it. This game, like, you can be attacked. If there's enemies nearby that are active, and you bring them close enough to a save point and then interact like this, you can get attacked and like everything during these save screens. Just like you can be attacked when you open up the map. Like, The game doesn't really pause. People remarking, James looks more and more tired as the game goes on. Yes, so this not only just the save screen, but also some of these details. So, like, look at his fingers. We've only just started the game, so his hands are relatively clean. His fingernails are, like, clean. As the game goes on, his hands will get dirty. There will be dirt underneath his fingernails. There's fingerprints and smudges on the maps as he pulls them out and touches them more. The bags under his eyes start becoming more and more noticeable. Like, he genuinely progresses through the game. Like, you notice the toll that everything is having on him, physically and mentally. So, Andy's books. So on the pathway walking into the town, there was a note on the picnic table, the first picnic table that you go past. And I pointed out that that was hinting at some of the items you need for the rebirth ending. And here, you can find a bunch of books giving you clues to getting each of the endings. So, searching for another conclusion. It's literally telling you, looking for a different ending. Searching for another conclusion. The road to tomorrow. It's better to prevent than to cure, as the old maxim tells us. Taking care of yourself and maintaining a healthy outlook can be a challenge in these fast modern times. So take care of yourself, maintain your health, heal often. The key is to not beat yourself up over past mistakes and avoid those who would do you harm. Avoid damage, avoid Maria. Sometimes it's better to avoid confrontation instead of engaging in pointless conflict. Don't fight everything. Don't kill so many things. Try to stay clear of toxic relationships, Maria. Focus instead on your friends and loved ones. Read Mary's letter. Listen to Mary's conversation in the last hallway. Keep your eyes on the prize. Focus on what really matters. Can it be that simple? Yes. Look to the future. It might be brighter than you think. That's the leave ending. This is telling you how to get the leave ending. Don't kill so many creatures. Don't fight so often. Keep yourself healed. Avoid Maria. Focus on Mary. This one's not for endings. This one's a note that's found even in regular New Game. In March of 1965, the town of Silent Hill was visited by the Maine Psychical Research Association. Psychical. After thorough examination, a team of expert dowsers from the association concluded the area surrounding the now historic Wilts coal mine to be highly active. They also expressed their hopes for further research and exploration of the gorge. These hopes, however, were never fulfilled due to the location being restricted as a historic nature preserve, as declared by the Silent Hill Historical Society. Additionally, the idea was met with resistance from the local community, which claimed that the nature of the association's research would hinder tourist activity in the area. Questioning the credibility of our research and hiding behind day trippers seems like an excuse to prevent us from seeing what's really out there, commented one of the researchers. Unfortunately, none of the local representatives were available to comment on the matter. Editor's note: at the time of publishing, there exists no evidence supporting credibility of radiesthesia, or proving effectiveness of any dowsing methods. Opinions expressed in the article do not reflect the author's views. So there's supernatural things going on. And you've got dowsers trying to research. And the whole idea of dowsing in general is sort of a pseudoscience, spiritual thing in the first place. And the fact that they are sort of alluding to this psychical research organization trying to look into the supernatural elements of the town. And the town basically forced them out. Being like, no, you're going to scare away the tourists. Because they knew. They know. What ending did Nub get in his first playthrough? Kuma, my first playthrough, I got the leave ending. Searching for another conclusion. So here's another clue into getting a particular ending. Choosing death. So this is for the in water ending. When life is filled with nothing but despair, some people choose to end it all. I once chose that path for myself as well. I embraced it. It felt right, like the only choice I could possibly make. After I made my decision, it became the only thing binding me to this world. I became reckless. I did stupid, dangerous things. I pushed away even those who cared about me. After all, why would it matter anymore? So, you're going for the in-water ending. Reckless, stupid, dangerous things. Push away those who care about me. You're avoiding Mary. You're avoiding Maria. You're taking damage. You're playing recklessly. Not healing right away. So, hints. If you're going for particular endings, it doesn't spell out the exact criteria, but it gives you enough information that you can reasonably figure out like what to do to get each ending. Searching for another conclusion, getting the girl. Do you love her? Do you really love her? In sickness and in health? Words are simple enough, but actions speak the loudest. Would you protect her? Fight for her? Put her above any other? Remember, now she is the one. Leave the past behind and forget about old relationships that ended in tears. Be true to your heart, and with luck, things will work out in the end. So that's your clue in to the Maria ending. Protect her. Fight for her. Put her above any other. Focus on Maria. Stay near her. Keep her healthy. Don't let her get attacked. And ignore things having to do with Mary. Ignore the photo, ignore the letter, the hallway conversation. So, just a cool thing. Alluding to some of the other endings that you can get. Bloody sheets. Gross bloody sheets soaking in an old washer. Come on in. Yeah, the dog one is in the diner. Yeah, UFO is on the wall in the record store. So, we'll find the other things that allude to the other endings when we get there. Super strong, super clean, Wash away the stains of yesterday. Again, sort of like the letters and the other stuff I was mentioning, everything is being projected from James's subconscious, or is a way for the town, the power of the town, to sort of be like, hey, pay attention, like realize what you've done, break out of your delusion, wash away the stains of yesterday, as in a metaphor for the past mistakes, the stains of yesterday, what James did. We find many signs and things in the environment that have a similar tone. It's a very common recurring thing, is trying to reference remembering something, recalling something, washing away mistakes, or owning up to mistakes that you've made. Interesting little thing here. There's not very many payphones throughout this game, and this is the only one. It's hanging off the hook, and you can hear it's got like the tone beeping. And we'll actually return to this payphone later on after Brookhaven. If you collect multiple items for endings, gameplay is what affects the true ending. I've currently found the dog key and parts for Rebirth. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different with the New Game Plus endings, because those have very particular criteria. Like, you're going to get, if you collect all of the Rebirth ending items and then play all the way up until the final boss, you're going to get the Rebirth ending, regardless of if your gameplay was leading you to in water. Like, the New Game Plus ending items will override whatever your gameplay was. Same deal if you're going for UFO ending and you use the blue gem where you're supposed to use it. Like, your gameplay doesn't matter. It will override. Ideally, if everything goes the way I plan, this playthrough will hopefully get UFO ending, dog ending, Rebirth ending. I think we can do stillness ending, and then one regular ending. I'm gonna try to make that regular ending the in-water ending, so that after this I can do a second playthrough specifically for Bliss. And then by that point, that should be about 100% if I do everything correctly. That man was here again. I told him he'd been warned not to come here. He acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. Anyway, he got up and left. He didn't make any sort of fuss, but there's something about him that gives me the creeps. When I look at his face, it's like I'm staring at a mask, and there's something underneath, waiting to get out. I don't want to be there when that happens. So just like the note found in the flower store earlier, I feel like all of the notes in this game, for the most part, are James's subconscious trying to make him realize things. They're not literally scraps of paper describing something that James did while he was in the town, or, things like that. I think they are manifestations. They are things to try to make him realize the truth. So again, aspects like this. James, on the outside, is supposed to be sort of a normal guy, but there's a darkness to him. He's a murderer. Whether or not you think it's justified or, you know, he did it out of kindness or mercy or love, he killed his wife. And it's something that he's hiding, that he's masking. He's not open about that. But it's still part of who he is. So you have these notes alluding to that there's something under this mask, under the face that you're looking at. Should have given James a Gears of War chainsaw execution attack. He might have one. I know that he's got like stealth takedown animations. And I don't think I know what that looks like for the chainsaw. I think I've only ever done it with the plank and the steel pipe. It's probably not it's probably not a full-on Gears of War execution, but there could be an animation. There might be something I haven't seen. Hi, any plans for Ascension tonight? Sorry, Shadow Cloud. Never again. Never again. Unless somehow they do a second season. Metal Gear. Metal Gear Solid reference here. Andy's Tool Shop. World's finest Metal Gear and woodworking tools. Metal Gear. Is that dumpster fire even still accessible? It is. I actually checked maybe like 2 weeks ago. A couple of days ago. I don't have a concept of time anymore. But yeah, I checked very recently to see what was even, like, if the website was even still, like, if the domain name was still hosted, like, if it was still owned. It's still there. It's still there. You can't do anything except for watch the episodes. None of the games or any other stuff works, but you can still watch the episodes. Come on, James, you can do it. I will say, the more I play this game, the more the combat annoys me. And it's not enough. Like, the combat's not great in the original either. These aren't really games where the combat is the main focus. So I'm super lenient in terms of criticism when it comes to the combat and gameplay like that. But the combat in this is, like, mainly, the big issue I have with it is just how you lock onto things. Stuff locks on very strangely. There's times where it'll lock me into an animation, and because of the way it locks me in, it forces the animation to miss. And then there's other times where I'll swing, like the chainsaw or something, and I'll be like, oh, I'm way too far away. And it will, like, psychic attack hit them from like 3 feet away. And I'm like, well, how did that connect? It's a little weird at times. It can be a little bit jank. Biggest complaints of the game, it's a little bit too long, and the back half has way too much combat. I would say, yeah, there's a little more combat and enemy focus than I would like from, yeah, like Brookhaven onwards. It's not enough to, like, ruin the game too much for me or anything. But yeah, I know what you mean. It feels a little bit artificially padded. That said, it's kind of an illusion, because you don't have to engage with that combat as much as you think. Anyway, Happy Burger. Feel the craving. You just can't help it. Go for it. Happy Burger. What you need is what you get. On the run, grab something to go. So there's, again, just sort of like with the notes earlier and the washing away the stains of the past sign that you find in the laundromat. You have things that are relevant to James. Feel the craving, just can't help it, go for it. Like James killing Mary, going for it. What you need is what you get. Think about it in terms of James being here. Like, what is he getting? What he needs. Something to force him out of his delusion. On the run. He's got a corpse in his back seat and drove here. The alternative way to look at this is, does it apply to Eddie? We're in a fast food place. Food is more Eddie's thing. That's kind of one of the common recurring themes around Eddie's character. They emphasize that a lot more in this game compared to the original. The original, you basically had your pizza scene in the Pizza Bowl-orama, but that's about it. This game, they make more of a recurring theme around Eddie. So in that context, feel the craving, just can't help it, go for it, Eddie, feeling that craving for violence, just can't help it. Like, he can't restrain himself. So he just goes for it. What you need is what you get. That almost sounds like the way Eddie addresses his quote-unquote bully victims' manifestations. That's what you get. And then he is on the run. He tells Laura that he was running from the cops. Kind of running from the truth, yeah. If you look at it in terms of James, but... After the success of this game, do you think they'll be remaking another? I think another Silent Hill remake is inevitable after the success of this one. I don't know if Konami will necessarily give it to Bloober. I think it's too early to determine that. Because I've been a Konami fan for a very long time. A little over 3 decades. And Konami has a tendency to do something good and successful and completely miss the point of why it was good and successful. And then the follow-up is usually ass. Now, I'm not saying that's what will happen here. I'm just saying there's a precedent already set where Konami, super successful remake done by a development team that clearly gave a shit. Konami usually follows that up with, let's outsource it to somebody who can do it cheaper. They look at it as like, oh, people like remakes. Well, we can get somebody cheaper than Bloober to do the next one. That's usually the Konami mindset. I hope that's not the case. And personally, I would prefer new entries over more remakes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Right now, I wouldn't expect anything anytime soon. Because Bloober Team has an entire other game that they're focused on right now. Like, Bloober Team is making Chronos: The New Dawn. That's their main focus project for the moment. So, if you're expecting a remake sooner, then it's extremely unlikely that it's Bloober Team behind it. And therein lies the problem. Does Konami look at the success of this and say, let's immediately start on another remake? Bloober's busy with Chronos: The New Dawn, so let's get, whoever, whatever, random other team to make the next remake, rather than wait, 2 more years for Bloober to be done, or 1 more year or whatever for Chronos: The New Dawn. Do we even have a release date for Chronos? I know we got another trailer like last month or whatever, whenever Game Awards was. What is that game even supposed to be about? Time travel? like post-apocalyptic trying to save the world, going back in time stuff. It's some kind of time travel-y sci-fi horror. It looks interesting. There's a man in a big metal suit who plays chess with a grandma and then shoots her and murders her brutally. That was the last trailer that I remember. Yeah, tell him, James. Tell him, Steve Dave. Checked from 0000 to 4013. Took almost 2 hours. Had to run. Checked from 4014 to 4439. Had to run again. I feel like I'm so close now. I just know it. You will see sooner or later. You will see. And there's Pyramid Head. Triangle Man. Sankaku Atama. Okay. Okay. See what I mean about the lock-on? Like, sometimes I will go to swing the chainsaw and you, like, teleport 3 feet over to the target and hit it. And then other times it locks on like it's going to do that, but then you don't move and you just miss. Sometimes you'll swing right through the enemy if they're moving towards you. Like, there's a little bit of a weird jankiness with how you focus on things, focus on targets in combat. Do you like James's Leatherface dance with the chainsaw? I like the animation. But the yell needed to be a bit better. Guy Seehe's chainsaw scream in the OG is so good. It's a little underwhelming in here, in this one. I don't know what got into him. He just started smashing the thing. Had to throw him out. He ran off. Cried he'd fix everything. I gathered up what I could. Still haven't found one of the buttons. Half the record is still lodged inside, but the other part's missing. Figure he must have taken it. Come to think of it, he did run towards Groovy. Anyway, maybe go check up on him. See if he's all right. He lives over at Saul by the pharmacy, apartment 9. And if you ever needed some definitive proof as to these are not literal notes written by people about James, James didn't live in Silent Hill. James and Mary I've only been to Silent Hill once, and that was on vacation, the time where Mary got sick. Because I know there's a lot of fans who've been looking into things, and I've been learning a lot of notes through fans who've been like ripping assets and looking at file names and things like that, because you do get a very interesting perspective when you see like the way an asset is named for internal use, like what a file name is for a note that is only seen by the developers internally. There is a certain amount of interesting information you can kind of glean off of things like that, but it's not necessarily things that are meant to be presented that way in terms of story or lore. And I've seen a lot of fans who kind of find those letters and notes and they're like, oh, this is literally about James. James was living in Silent Hill. He was this janitor who lived in this apartment. And it's like, all of that completely contradicts core original story points. Like, a big part of this game revolves around the fact that James and Mary have only been here once before, on vacation. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. You don't say that about a place where you live. So some people, I think, some fans just read a little bit too literally into some of these notes and things. There was a hole here. It's gone now. One guy writing a whole thesis on the game's lore that integrated the novel. I will say, like, the novel's Sadamu Yamashita's novelization for Silent Hill 2, it's interesting. At some point I want to do audiobook readings for all of the Yamashita Silent Hill novels, but he wasn't part of the dev team. Like, it's an independent writer's interpretation of Silent Hill 2. It's not a canon, it's not a canonical document to expand on the story. It is a particular writer's interpretation, which again is interesting, but I think trying to use those kind of sources to justify canon is, I don't know, it seems a little bit off to me. That's not how I approach learning about these games and sort of determining what seems to be intended, what's not intended, what seems to be canonical, what seems to be for the benefit of the story versus what seems to be for the benefit of the player, like from a game design standpoint. There's a lot of nuance to those things that, it can be hard to parse, I guess. No broken vinyl record. Interesting insights into the novel that made me want to check it out more. There is some interesting stuff in the novel, but the way they approach, like, James confronting Eddie in the novel is like completely different. Completely different. Eddie winds up being like torn apart and dragged off by manifested dogs, which I get it. I obviously understand what that is supposed to represent to Eddie, but it's things like that there was a very particular dynamic between James and Eddie, the way the game presents it, the way that the original developers presented it, that your fellow man, the other people who you think you can relate to, are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than the creatures, than the manifestations. I think that's a very important dynamic to the story and to the characters and the way they interact with each other. And I think it's cool having Eddie get chewed up by dogs, but I think it takes away a lot of interesting character dynamic because of that. Okay, so let's see. Not that map. This map. We can go Saul Street. We can go groovy music. Before I do Saul Street, I need to get the blue gem. So let's go do groovy music and grab the gem. This is another thing that eventually, like, the more I play this game, the more familiar I'll get with it. I don't really have, like, a route through the game yet. Let's see this. $4439. I know it's 4444 on standard, and I think it's 4450 or something on hard. Stop it. Or it's like 4450 something. Maybe it is 4446. They just added 2. That's what it was. I knew it was like only very slightly different from the solution on standard. Couldn't remember exactly. Handgun ammo. And again, some of these little props and things in the environment are recreations of assets in the original. The boxes of butter cake. The boxes of tea. The cookies. So much so that a box of butter cake is one of the artifacts that you can get in Silent Hill Book of Memories. But they were originally in the OG Silent Hill 2. They were reused in Silent Hill 3 and 4. So it's just one of those little background props, recurring background props that Bloober took the time to like recreate, place around. Sorry, my voice is starting to go already. Buttercake lore. That's why you're here, right? There's plenty of Silent Hill 2 streamers and video essayists who can tell you about the main plot points and analyzing all of the major stuff. But who is going to tell you about Buttercake and how it was used in Book of Memories? How many other people are going to know that? Other than, like... other than Rachel, the two people in this house who've actually played hundreds of hours of Book of Memories. Main news. It's another one of those newspapers. See, okay. I'm trying my best to like put into words what I'm talking about with the combat, and these are the little video clips that I need to use to support my argument. You can see where like the camera moves and locks on, and then like nothing connects. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just swing like right through things. Hey, Meep. Now you got the Book of Memories song stuck in your head. Hey, there's a lot of songs in Book of Memories, but I hate that I know exactly which one you mean when you say the song. Texan Cafe, we gotta leave. Meet me there. Wah, 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 wah. Glimpse of the past, the garbage chute. The original garbage chute. And the OG Silent Hill 2. This is where you get the one of the coins, the old man coin. So many people here. First of the mysterious photographs. So these are an optional collectible all throughout the remake. And there is a message, hidden message, spelling out the phrase, "You've been here for 20 years, or 2 decades. You've been here for 2 decades. But in each of these photos, you pick it up. There is a subject in the photo that you can count. In this photo, it's open windows. So 6 open windows. You look at the phrase written at the bottom, "So many people here," and take the 6th letter out of that phrase, which is Y. So that's the first letter. You can see this is photo number 1, so you know it's the first letter in the phrase. But once you find all of these, count the objects in the photo, use that number to pick the letter of the phrase, and then put it all in order. It spells out, "You've been here for 2 decades. Hi. He was patiently listening to my explanation as well. Very courteous lying figure. What are they? I shouldn't go through. I don't know why. I won't. They don't stink, but it feels like they do. No smell at all. I just want to say, this is a new thing. This is like a new note added for the remake. It's very similar to a note in the OG, where you basically have somebody trying to figure out, like, are these things real? Are they not? I like adding the description that they don't stink, but it feels like they do. Like, you see the creatures and the other world and everything, it looks like it should be like rotting meat, like everything should smell horrible. But some aspect of these being a manifestation keeps them from having a smell. Now, the main reason I like this is because there are several points throughout the game where James viscerally reacts to a smell, where he comes across something that makes him choke or gag or cover his mouth. And I like that this note is here to emphasize that those things are real. Those situations, because those don't happen in situations where it's like a monster. It's usually something else. But I like that. It separates out one of those kind of questionable elements. Like, is this thing that James is interacting with real or not? Well, does it stink? Does he react to it as though it smells? Because then it's real. Am I correct in saying the photos do not get organized in the correct order at any point? Because I was definitely too lazy to try and sort them out to decipher them. I think it might put them in order as you pick them up, like here in the menu. I don't remember if it puts them in the order you find them or the order they're numbered. I think it just puts them in the order you find them, which is not numerical. So you do have to, like, arrange them in order yourself. I believe that's the case. I might be misremembering, but I'm fairly sure that's the case. Yeah, Kabi, I believe that's correct. I think you do put everything in your menu in the order you find it. By the way, if you're going for particular endings, right here on the map, it's not marked, but next to Big J's on New Game Plus is the Silent Jewelers. Hold on. But yeah, Silent Jewelers right here on the map. Break the window, and in this display case is where you get the blue gem. So if you're going for the UFO ending, that's where you get this. In the original game, you would pick this up in the bathroom at the very, very beginning. Very, very start. And you don't use it in exactly the same places. They added a new location where you have to use the blue gem compared to the original, so I'll try not to mess up and forget, because I forgot to use it during the Japanese language playthrough. I forgot a lot of stuff during the Japanese language playthrough. I forgot to use the blue gem in all the right spots. I forgot to get the second half of the dog key. A lot of stuff like that. It's easy to miss. And this game also just has a lot of points of no return. There's a lot of moments where if you don't do something by a certain point in the game, you just can't do it. You're locked off. You can't backtrack. I love all the signs, just all the town itself, just exploring the town. This has always been one of my favorite aspects of the Silent Hill games. Just wandering through a creepy town and like looking at everything. And I really like just the visuals, the atmosphere of all the buildings, all the signs, how faithfully recreated so much of it is compared to the OG. Bloober did great with this. The door that wakes in darkness, opening into nightmares. This is one of the few like visual effects for some reason that bothers me. The text doesn't ripple the same as the fabric. You see, there's like, you have the sheet, and the sheet has like a rippling waving animation. The text is floating in front of the sheet with a different wavy effect that's like not perfectly synced to the sheet waving effect. Like, look at the stain to the right of darkness above the word into. Look at how dark, how much shadow there is in the ripple when it goes from right to left over that bloody smudge. And the smudge is just sort of like floating in front of it. That's like one of the more noticeable parts of it. And the more you look at it, like there's other parts that do the same thing. Super nitpicky. It always looked, from the first time I saw this, I was like, oh, that looks weird. The text is just sort of floating there. Wind chimes. Yeah, it's just like a multi-layered effect. You've got the font on one layer with like a transparent layer that it's on, and then the sheet behind it. But the two animation effects, the shadow from the sheet needs to be on top of the font. Like, it's not layered correctly. The shadow from the sheet should be casting shadow on the letters, and it doesn't. That hurt. So I do not want to heal right away. Again, I'm going to try to go for multiple endings. Ideally, we should be able to do Rebirth. Very nice, James. Rebirth, UFO, Dog, Stillness, or excuse me, Bliss. Stillness is the only one we can't do. Bliss, and then a normal ending. The normal ending we're going to try and get in water so that our follow-up we can get Stillness. Portishead. Did you see a Portishead thing? Livlin? Or are you just saying Portishead as in like there should be? That would have been an interesting little detail. Little nod to Silent Hill 1. Having Portishead posters. Look at the handprint and like smudges in the dust on the VCR. Another little radio, kind of similar, not too different from the one James picked up. Oh, I saw that green and white album right there that says Potential. And for a brief second, I was like, oh, there's your Portishead. Not quite. Here we go. This is your clue to solving the UFO or getting the UFO ending. Out of This World magazine, special issue. Alien device found in local store. So it's telling you check the local stores to find the blue gem. Bizarre findings on roof of local building. So we need to use it on the roof of the Saul Street apartments. Prehistoric creature spotted in local lake. So we need to use it once we're at the lake. That's going to be at the Historical Society. Paranormal activity in local hotel. So then we use it finally in James and Mary's room at the Lakeview Hotel. You got to see it to believe it. So that's everything we've got to do for the UFO ending. And just like the previous signs that are alluding towards James, something to do with James and his mind, once again, poster here, Face the Music. Face the Music is like a metaphor for owning up to having done something wrong, accepting a punishment after having done something wrong is referred to as facing the music. Find the melody of your dreams and kick up your heels. There's also a lot of wordplay and references to dreams in general. Dreams and nightmares. But the main thing, face the music. It is literally James being told to own up to the wrong thing that you have done. The janitor came in the other day, drunk and in tears. Had half a record with him, kept yelling, "We gotta fix it somehow." I was willing to do it just to shut him up, so I got up to get the glue from the cabinet, but then he realized he only had the one half, so he ran out. Can't do much about the record. Maybe ask around at Neely's next time you're there. Might be one of theirs. put so much attention to detail in the assets that you really have to go out of your way to find stuff to nitpick. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, if not for very minor nitpicks and things, I have very, very, very few, if any, like, major complaints about this game as a remake. Like, there's parts of it that I don't necessarily like, or that I think could have been done better or presented better, information that could have been presented better, but like, outside of nitpicking, yeah, some really, really small stuff. Overall, this game is like really good, really solid. Let's get our vinyl glue and our broken vinyl record. This concept that absolutely is not a thing that would work. Like, I guess theoretically you could try to glue a vinyl record back together, but it probably wouldn't work. And it would definitely fuck up your needle or your player. Even if you tried, especially the way James does it. Like, if you were super careful so that the glue was only on the inside of the cracks, there was like nothing seeping out onto the surface of the record, I could almost believe this. But look at all the excess glue. Just like all over it. There's no fucking way this would work. I know, he's doing his best. He's doing his best. Impressive. So yeah, there's Silent Jewels, and then we have the Pet Center. So this on regular New Game is locked, but for New Game Plus, you can go in. This is going to be where we get the dog key. And we get some clues for finding and using the dog key as well. We caught it near cats. We should have never brought it here. I don't know what to do. I know it's there, sitting and staring. Can't let it out. Can't walk away. Won't let me go. Don't look at it. Don't look it in the eyes. They're referring to Mira, the dog from the dog ending. And they really did go... initially, they went for a more sinister approach with the dog ending and with Mira. Like, in the original, it's a very lighthearted sort of joke ending thing. The remake makes Mira kind of creepy. And there's actually, like, different versions of the dog ending. There's the 1.0. So when this game came out, before any sort of updates or patches, there's a 1.0 version of this game on the physical PS5 disc that you can go through a bunch of steps to essentially unpatch the game and play that 1.0 version on the disc. And if you do, a lot of the scenes and visuals and stuff, especially the dog ending, are very different. Like, completely different cinematography. It's a longer scene in general. So there's some really interesting stuff like this. And again, that last line, the don't look at it, don't look it in the eyes, they do a very creepy, unsettling, like, stare down between James and Mira in this version of the dog ending. So kind of change that up, make it a little more sinister. Dog ending could have been better. My biggest gripe for the dog ending in this is there is no blooper reel. I'm fine with them changing up the ending itself a little bit and trying to do something unexpected or a little more interesting, just unique with it to kind of make it their own. But no blooper reel? No blooper reel? Come on. That was even a thing in the first Silent Hill. Getting rid of the blooper reel is disappointing. Yeah, no bloopers from Bloober. Like 75% of the people who play their games don't even realize that the studio is called Bloober. They all call it Blooper. Anybody I see talking about the dev team online, like 3 out of 4 times, they call it Blooper. They refer to them as Blooper Team. And then we don't even get a blooper reel. Okay, so now we're back here. We got the first half of the dog key. We got to make sure to grab the other half after we meet Maria. Now we can go to the Saul Street Apartments. Metal Gear. Hey, what's up, Space? Hope you're doing well. Violently devastated by Hurricane Helene. Have a park that is absolutely destroyed and the only thing that stayed standing was a gazebo. Always imagine finding Maria there after the remake. Wouldn't be the first time that like a natural disaster inspired or influenced video game atmosphere or level design. I want to say that was like Left 4 Dead 2. Left 4 Dead 2 has the parish, which was all, I believe, heavily inspired by the horrible destruction of Katrina, Hurricane Katrina back in the day. Apartment 5 left his key. Says there's a leak from upstairs. Gotta check it out. Apartment key. Little pharmacy here. Green Pharmacy. Relevmid, Berolmin, Zalprazanax, Ematnelemed. So these are not real things, but the names are all like very, very similar. Like only slightly changed from some real world medications, predominantly cancer medications, if I remember correctly. And it's never explicitly said in the original or this game for that matter what Mary's illness, like what her condition is. But again, we sort of have these instances of like James projecting these memories of like having to pick up Mary's prescriptions and things like that, which is what's creating these notes, sort of forcing him to remember all of these things about his past, his relationship with Mary, her illness. Tenant's note. I'm certain now. It's coming from that apartment. I keep telling them. Why won't they do something? It's unbearable. I can feel it seeping into my skin, pushing itself into my lungs. Again, kind of a little detail thing, but one that I appreciate. There's a lot of horror games, even some newer, bigger budget horror games, where like picking up notes is a regular thing that you do. Can I just say I love that like every single scrap of paper and note that you find in this is unique. Sometimes it's like sketch paper. Sometimes it's like college ruled notebook paper. Sometimes it's graph paper with like the serration at the top. Sometimes it's on the side. Like they could have very easily just had one or two, like, here's your plain piece of paper that you just put your note and your font and stuff onto. But instead, like, every piece of paper, every note is like super unique looking. You know, receipt paper. The diner, like your ticket paper with notes written on it. You know, it's all unique looking. It adds a lot of personality and detail to these notes that you find And just the amount of details in all of the locations, all of these apartments. A lot of unique assets, things that could have been easily replaced, or not replaced, but replicated, reused over and over and over. And I mean, some are. You'll eventually start seeing like clothes hanging up, where we'll see these same articles of clothing hanging around and different things like that. But for the most part, there's not a whole lot of prop reuse, like asset reuse. It's varied enough that it never becomes distracting. Because there is definitely a limit. There's a certain point where if you repeat things too often, it I don't know, your eye picks up on it. Again, more clocks in the environment. Almost every clock in the entire game, I think with the exception of 2 of them, are set to 10 past 9. Someone mentioned in chat it kind of reminded them of Homecoming. And it definitely feels like that, because that time was just a puzzle solution in the original. There wasn't really that much significance given to it. And they... Instead, with the remake, they really, really emphasize the clocks being at 10 past 9 all throughout the game, like trying to give it more significance. Some fans have theorized that that's like the moment that Mary died. That's the time that Mary died. And again, it feels a little bit like Homecoming. That was a plot point in Homecoming. All the clocks were stuck at 2:06 because 2:06 was supposedly the time that Josh died, as well as the room number that Alex was kept in when he was put into the mental hospital. All these other little things. They make 2:06 and all the clocks say 2:06 in Homecoming to sort of add that element of detail. So, kind of feels like they're doing that. They're pulling a Homecoming, doing all the clocks at 10 past 9. Hey Samael, did I give a final opinion of this game? Good remake. Good remake. Good remake. I thoroughly enjoy it. Ah, there. Just now. So there was a little gasp. That was Mary's breath. There's a very sudden, very sharp gasp that, like just like that one, that you hear all throughout this game in very key moments. So that is Mary. Like you're hearing a gasp from when James was killing Mary periodically throughout the game. And that right there, I believe, is the first time you can hear it. And then we'll hear it again after we leave the apartments, after we meet Laura on the wall outside of the apartments. There's like a little tunnel. So that's the next time we hear that gasp. I believe. I think I'm remembering correctly. It's not perfect, but if we're being honest, neither was the original. Yeah, I mean, realistically, there is no perfect game. Like, there are criticisms that I have and that I can find even with the original games. And Silent Hill 2, the original, is my favorite game of all time. Not even just among horror and among Silent Hill, like games in general, that is my favorite game. This game is not one of my favorite games, but it is good enough that I consider it one of the better Silent Hill games. I honestly would probably put this, like, I'm gonna do a whole tier list video, as I used to have a bot command with like a tier list of all the games, and I figured I could just do a YouTube video and sort of explain my justification as a longtime fan who's played these games like thousands of times, why I rank them the way that I do. Anyway, video for another time. But Remake is going to be like A tier for me. It's up there. I would put this on the same level as like Silent Hill 4 and Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Shattered Memories being my favorite of the Western developed games. It's not on par with the first 3 games, the first original 3 Team Silent games, but it's damn good. It's close. Blank, blank, blank. And then she came and washed it all away. It all started to make sense again. Blank, blank. It's this place. I can't fight it. Gotta get my head straight. Quick stop at Texan. Then we're going. So presumably, we're kind of following some of the notes, some of the lore. Since we also found that note at the apartments. Yeah, the Texas Cafe one. Saying we gotta leave. I think I just heard the ambient music loop. There was a really harsh sound cut there. I don't think I noticed that in my previous playthroughs. Maybe I didn't spend this much time in this area. Did I understand that right? You ranked Silent Hill 4 relatively high up alongside the remake and Shattered Memories. Yeah, like, for me, just the quick version, because like I said, I'll do a whole video on it. Silent Hill 2 for me is S tier. Silent Hill 3 for me is S tier. Those are like the 2 best games in the franchise to me. OG Silent Hill 2, OG Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 1, A tier. Very, very good. Somewhat flawed, but it was the starting point, and I understand it was more limited. It had the most limitations out of any other game in the series, and they still managed to do amazing things with it, and obviously it kickstarted the whole franchise. Love Silent Hill 1. A tier. Silent Hill 4, I put in A tier. A lot of people would disagree with me on that one. If we were talking strictly gameplay, I would put Silent Hill 4 much lower, but I don't play these games for gameplay. Pure and simple. I play them for story. And in terms of story, Silent Hill 4, it's A tier. It's A tier. It's up there. And then I would put Shattered Memories right alongside this and Shattered Memories, like right after Silent Hill 4, right around the same level as Silent Hill 4. By the way, this is one of the moments James is reacting like there's a smell. There's a rotting corpse. There is something horrible on the other side of this door, and he reacts like he can smell it. So again, go back to that note earlier. where it's saying like they look like they should have a smell. This one. They don't stink, but it feels like they do. I feel like this helps determine what things are manifested and what things are not. I think that this is a real thing. There is really a body or something horrible smelling there that is not just a creature or not just a manifestation, because James senses it, he smells it, he perceives it in ways that you don't necessarily perceive manifestations. Can't wait to see what Bloober will do with Silent Hill 1 and 3. There is absolutely zero confirmation that Bloober will do anything with Silent Hill 1 and 3, by the way. So everybody has already kind of jumped to the conclusion that Bloober's just going to crank out remake after remake now. That's not how this works. That's not how the industry works. It's definitely not how Konami usually does business. So, be hopeful, but just understand there is absolutely no confirmation that Bloober is doing anything. They're making Chronos the New Dawn. That's what's confirmed. Resident Evil's doing it? Yeah, Capcom is not Konami. Konami is not Capcom. Resident Evil also has a dedicated team. Resident Evil has a lot of consistent developers and people who worked on them throughout the series, from the originals all the way up through to the new ones. Konami had 4 very successful games from 1999 to 2004, and then told Team Silent to fuck off. We're going to give this to, Climax Studios instead. Sound cue. So we get some extra sound cues for when to use the blue gem. So you start hearing that noise. Wow, 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 wow. That's your clue to open up your inventory and examine your blue gem. Nice little addition compared to the original Silent Hill 2, where you just had to know. You just had to know where you're supposed to use the blue gem. Here, you find the note in groovy music that tells you all the places that you're supposed to use the gem. And then when you actually get to those places, you get that nice little sound cue to let you know, like, here it is. By the way, Tassadul, I'm sorry, you resubbed like a while ago and I've just been rambling. Tassadul, thank you so much for the 19 months. Did you really start streaming less than 5 minutes after I went to bed? The one time I decided to go to bed at a normal time. Your streaming made giving up on sleeping a good idea after all, though. Well, get some sleep if you can, Tassadul. I'm sorry I missed that earlier. Of course, everything will be archived. But yeah, my bad. I've never been good. I've never been good at like sticking to a schedule and streaming at times where people can like anticipate that I'm going to be around. And yeah, my health has been not good for a while, so I haven't been able to stream and be online nearly as much as I would have liked to in the last several months. So my apologies. Wonder if the environment subtitles describe the sound as well. Environment subtitles are turned on, and we did not get a subtitle there when the blue gem started going off. Interestingly enough. If you could meet James Sunderland in real life, what would you tell him? Yeah, Rachel's met Guy Seehee. I've met Troy Baker. Does that count? I don't know. If James was a real person, not just like meeting the actor, like talking to James Sunderland himself, I don't think I'd want to interact with him. I don't think I would enjoy, I would not be as obsessed and appreciative of the story of Silent Hill 2 if this was like a true crime documentary about a real person. But Guy Seehee is apparently really, really cool. He used to do a lot of fan meetups on his own dollar. He would pay, he'd like rent out a pizza place or a bowling alley for fan meetups and autograph stuff for people. He'd usually have Dave Shoffley, who plays Eddie, because Guy and Dave are both friends, good friends in real life. So a lot of times Dave would come out to those meetings. Ooh. I need to go get the token. That's what I forgot. We don't need to save. We have some more posters here. Stuff that's relevant to James. Spill the beans. Which is an idiom. A phrase meaning tell the truth. Spill the beans over an honest cup of coffee. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the memories. Again, lots of reference to memory, recalling things, moments in the past. But spill the beans. It's telling James to tell the truth. Be honest with yourself, with what you have done. Okay. Got our coin. Got the button. Got the first part. Second part's not until after Maria. Got the blue gem. Used it on the roof. Got Crimson Ceremony. I'm just kind of getting used to everything I need to have before I progress. And actually, there is some stuff in here. I don't think there's an item to pick up. I think it's just a note. It's just this. Yeah. I saw him again, or at least I think so. He says he didn't, but I don't know anymore. I'm tired. Can't find it. Doesn't matter. That scraping noise again. References to scissors. We've got a pair of scissors on the note. Giant pair of scissors on the sign out front, which is the design of Pyramid Head's knife. The great knife was originally designed to be a half of a giant pair of scissors. Originally, Masahiro Ito mentioned that he wanted to design, or that the team wanted to design two separate great knives, the one that Pyramid Head uses and the one that James uses, to be opposites of each other, where if you would have put them together, they would have formed a large pair of scissors. But you can see, even in the design of something like this, cut off where the handle is, the shape of the blade, the position of like that screw, the bump holding the two parts together, all of that is Pyramid Head's knife. So again, really like this kind of stuff. This was something that was not known when the original game came out. It wasn't until fairly recently, I think maybe like 2016 or 2017 or something like that. Within the last like 7 to 10 years that Ito tweeted about the great knife being scissors, being modeled after scissors. It's relatively new information. And the fact that Bloober Team, well, they had Ito working on this with them to provide that insight, but they also just went ahead and used it, utilized it. Reference it directly. Has any video you've made shown the scissors that they emulate side by side? Can't remember if the iceberg. The iceberg video did not. I think it's mentioned. Actually, was that on the iceberg? I honestly don't remember. I'm sure there's got to be some video out there that's probably covered it. And if not, I can always make a video or include it in a future iceberg, because at some point I'll do a Silent Hill 2 remake specific iceberg. But I'm not sure what I want to do first. If I should do other games, or if I should go straight for the remake iceberg. We'll see.
park on the lake. We spent the whole day there. Just the two of us staring at the water.
You really like this scene, Red Wanderer? It's interesting. It's interesting. I feel like it made more sense in the original, where that moment that James just had, where he was like, the park on the lake, you know, remembering Rosewater Park specifically, that happened at the very start, when James is like monologuing, thinking to himself after reading Mary's letter, you know, right after you step out of the bathroom, out of the intro area. Here, it gives James direction. It's his first goal, right? In the OG. Rosewater Park. I got to get to Rosewater Park. It's the place that I remember. It's the place that I think might be the special place. So everything that you're doing, finding the key, getting through the apartments, your reason for all of that is James trying to get to the park. There is no other way. He eliminates every other possible route to get there until being forced to go through the apartments. But he still has a point of direction. He still has the motivation, the goal. I remember Rosewater Park. Let's go. Everything that we've just done for the past 4 hours right now, like James just now got to the point of being like, oh yeah, Rosewater Park. The record reminded me, let's go there. What was the motivation like in this context? Because like notes are optional. We technically pick up notes that kind of tell you to go do things, you know, not really directly. It's more of a gameplay thing. It's more telling the player, go check out the apartments. Go check out groovy music, because you found this note that mentions this place. It's less about James's personal motivation of, I got this letter, I remember Rosewater Park, that's where I'm going. No matter what I have to go through to get there, that is my motivation. That's where I'm going. This intro sequence, I like the jukebox puzzle. I like that from a gameplay standpoint, it motivates you to explore the town and look around in all these little places and gives you a puzzle to solve. It gives you more to do as a player, but it makes less sense from a character motivation standpoint. Do I make sense? Again, it doesn't bother me. It's not like, oh my god, they ruined everything with the intro of the game. It's just they've got a different approach to it. For me, narratively, and from a character standpoint, the original handled the intro in a more natural way than the remake. But, you know, it's different. Not necessarily bad, it's just different. Why in universe does this particular tune mean anything to James? Yeah, again, I like the concept of like music awakens memories and, you know, kind of linking James's memories coming back to these particular sensory things that he not only sees but hears. That I like. But yeah, this song, this recognizable part of the soundtrack, I guess James and Mary have heard it before? If they had a flashback showing Mary playing the tune on piano. Yes. Especially because, like, that is a detail of the original, that Mary played piano. They emphasize it even more in the remake. They make more references to Mary playing piano in the remake. It's like, that, they could have used that. They could have made a little bit more of a connection there. Maybe that is the intended connection we're supposed to make. Maybe they didn't want to be that obvious about it. But yeah, it comes off a little bit strange. For some reason, felt Mary to be more real by just showing her hand. I do like that. I like the little glimpse. The fact that he is remembering, like, he obviously has this memory of her. But even his memories right now, like, he doesn't fully visualize her. Like, he can't even face her in his mind, in his memories of her. Just her hand. Just the acknowledgement that, like, she was here. He came back after you left. It's fine. He didn't try anything. He just seemed sad. Mumbled something about getting out of town with someone. I wasn't going to let him drive in his condition, so I locked him out. His car should be out back. Maybe check if it's still there by morning. It's the greenish-blue one. Plate number ending with 06, I think. And if I remember correctly, the car that they are referring to resembles James's car. Might possibly be the exact same car. Again, ways for the town to, like, and the notes to reference aspects of James, but not necessarily be literal, you know, writings of things that happened. James didn't necessarily live here or work as a janitor or any of the things that these notes try to infer. It's just the details. It's the little in between the lines parts of the note that are parallels to James, that are relevant. Yeah. Very similar to the car model in the original Silent Hill 2. That Pontiac Ventura style hood shape, body shape, that angled front bumper. And then James's jacket. This is one of those things I mentioned. Hearing me. We already talked about Eddie's van. Thank you for the 74 months, man. So earlier I mentioned there's sort of lots of different layers of information to consider when I'm learning about Silent Hill and Silent Hill games in general, when I'm researching them. There's lots of different aspects, right? There's the in-game aspect, what you can see and discover and learn just by playing the game. Things that are just in the game. Then there's like developer history and commentary outside of that. So you can learn more about the intentions of the art team, the sound team, the directors and the actors, about, things that are outside of the game lore itself, but still relevant based on developer commentary and things like that. And then there is looking at the game from a technical standpoint, ripping assets, just getting raw textures and game files and looking at not only what they are, but what they are called. Because sometimes, not always, not often, but sometimes you can glean bits of information from what something is called internally. As, for an example, as like why this isn't always relevant. Silent Hill Downpour. A lot of the assets and things in Silent Hill Downpour got pulled. And when you look at Murphy's model, a lot of Murphy's animations and models and things that have to do with Murphy, when you look at the actual file name for those things, he's called Charlie. Because originally, Charlie was not his son's name, it was his name. But that was something that changed during the development process. Now, it doesn't matter what you name the models, as long as everybody who's working on the game internally knows what it's referring to. It's not something the player is ever meant to see. So it doesn't really matter what you name it. But it's interesting from me learning about the development history of the game to see like, oh, this character was originally called something else. They changed the name, but the internal file still refers to it as this other thing. Silent Hill 2 Remake, similar sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff in the game that has deliberate file names. This jacket is called James Jacket Pickable in the file names. So if there was ever any sort of like, oh, I'm kind of on the fence if these bodies are supposed to be James, if these jackets and things that we find are supposed to be James's, it's literally titled James Jacket Pickable. It is a interactable, pickable version of a James jacket in the files, like the way that it's referred to internally. So little things like that, little details like that are interesting to me, but don't always necessarily mean something of significance, because there are also like notes that you pick up in here throughout the game that are called like, James Note Apartment 6 or whatever. And there are some fans who like saw those file names and immediately concluded like, oh, this note is written by James. His name is there, or it's specifically written about James. And sometimes it's just there to like label things that James can interact with. It's not necessarily relevant to him from a lore or character standpoint, It's more from a gameplay or development standpoint, or just a, internal thing that's unrelated. Anyway, time to go to Woodside Apartments. Yeah, hit the pose, James. Very appropriate. Hey, CD. Sorry if I missed it, but why are you only using a chainsaw? Because it's a very strong, overpowered New Game Plus weapon. I'm also just sort of grinding towards all endings and 100%ing the game on all platforms. So there is an achievement for melee only, not killing any enemies with ranged weapons. So I might as well go for that. But yeah, chainsaw in general is just a good weapon, and it's helping me get an achievement. Is combat also set to lowest? No, everything is on hard right now. This is, I think it shows. Does it show? Oh yeah, you can change it at any time. But yeah, we're on hard combat. Hard combat, hard riddles. Which achievement? Melee only. No killing enemies with ranged weapons. Didn't already get that. You might already have it. I didn't even check what trophies you've already got on the PS5. But it's fine. Either way, even if I'm not going for that, I'm still going to use the chainsaw because the chainsaw is OP. It is super fucking good. Thought if the combat was a bother, you wouldn't have bothered making it anything but easy. The combat is sort of inconsequential to me, but I'm at the point where you got to understand the way I think about these games, right? I am the most obsessive Silent Hill fan in the world, not hyperbole, literally. So when I talk about 100%ing these games, I don't just mean getting every ending and getting all the achievements. I mean memorizing them to the point where, like, with the original Silent Hill 2, I can play through that entire game, beginning to end, in my mind. Every item placement, everywhere you need to go, every cutscene, every bit of dialogue, every little bit of text when you examine anything, like, I've basically memorized it just from playing the game literally thousands of times over the last 23 plus years. eventually that is my goal for all things Silent Hill, to be as familiar with them as possible in all ways. So this is only my third playthrough of this game. I'm still getting accustomed. I'm still getting used to memorizing aspects, fairly basic aspects of these games, and of this game in particular. So I've played it on standard. Now I'm playing it on hard, just to see the differences. The chainsaw is going to basically be there to nullify the difficulty of combat in general anyway. But I'm curious to see, like, enemy behaviors. Are they more aggressive? Do they tend to be... Are there more enemies in general? I'm looking at all these little differences, making mental notes of how is this different from when I played it on standard to playing it on hard now. And then I'll do another playthrough at some point on easy, and everything in between. Every possible combination of settings, every possible combination of, like, visual settings. Eventually I will do it all, experience it all. So yes, combat is kind of a bother, and it's sort of secondary to me, but it's still important to me to play it on all difficulties, just to be as thoroughly familiar with all aspects of the game as possible. And on that note, I think this is where we're going to end it today.